Animal Welfare Committee to order. I'm going to ask that item number 1 and number 3 be put on consent without objection. So those will be on consent, and we will let's vote on the consent calendar. Any objections to item 1 and 3? Those items will be passed, and we will have approved the CAO's recommendation. We're going to continue item number 2, and we are going to continue item number 10. Item number 10 will be continued to our next meeting. We'll ask that, just for the record, that Mr. Herman make no more animal noises. This will be your one warning. So further of that, and we'll ask that you be removed. And so we have multiple cards from Mr. Herman. Rather than take every single one of them, we are going to give him 3 minutes, including public comment for all of them. Mr. Herman?
Shout out.
Mr. Herman?
That's my general public comment.
That was your animal noise again. If since you're making your public comment, I will allow your one disruption. Any more animal noises?
Am I allowed to speak on general public comment right now? Or in the order that you're asking?
General public comment, all the items, a combined 3 minutes, and any more disruptive animal noises, and you will be removed.
Okay. Personnel Department report, the response adopted budget relative to Personnel Department report, committee regarding firefighters application process, none submitted. Go to item number 7. Use special funds for volunteer coordinating and report regarding fund operations. Nobody cares. Go to item number 9. Yeah. Adopting the hiring process for animal control animals for vacant positions. Well, Herb Wesson has announced that Animal Services has been doing a great job, but there's a different opinion upon this issue, according to Daniel Gus, the writer of City Watch. On his behalf, fuck you. Now I'm going to item number 9, adopt a budget and recommendation for the hiring of animal control officers, any other funded vacant positions. Well, now that Trump is in the position to stop you from allowing animals to come in flight from countries, you should think about it, fools. Now I'm going to item number 12, food. Motion of woo, but best to call into order. Mr. Harold Dawson is not on his seat. We only have 2 persons, David Rue and Mr. Koretz, regarding the assistance of the city attorney to report within 60 days feasibility of allowing retail sales to set up supplies and products at city animal shelters. What kind of fucking bullshit is this? What kind of fucking bullshit is this? I'm here to bitch, because I believe that no animal, no service should have the city attorney saying to us what is feasible and allowed in a retail store. After all, those dumb bitches yesterday are saying that if you're an owner of an animal store, you have to pay taxes and get permits. Guess what? If you're illegally, you can sell shit on the street and don't have to get a permit and kill everybody and kill my animal, my fucking service animal. Then now going to item number 13. Oh my God. Comprehensive review of physical analysts. Is it current? No. Is any and all license and permit services reported? No. Why the reason behind Daniel Gus' report about animal cruelty from this department, from this city, making up lies about what we do for our animals and the service of our animals? That's a bunch of crap. And so under HHH, Human Health and Hygiene, animals have a right to make any shout out they want, Peppa Pig. That's you, Mr. Koretz.
He's continuing to disrupt the meeting with his
Thank you.
animal noises. If you could remove him, please, that would be appreciated.
Fool, relax.
Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Now, if we could take item 4 through 6 together.
Item number 4, continued from August 3rd, 2016, Personnel Department report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Personnel Department to report in regard to current functionality of the department and sustainability of its current funding level. Item 5, Personnel Department report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Personnel Department to report to the PAW Committee regarding police officer hiring metrics. Item number 6, Personnel Department report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Personnel Department to report to the PAW Committee regarding firefighter application process.
And just for the record, Mr. Herman on the way out continued to make animal noises and yell and attempt to disrupt the meeting. If you could give us highlights of your report and focus on successes and areas of concern.
Good morning. I'm Aram Kuyumjan. I'm one of the Assistant General Managers of the Personnel Department, and I oversee public safety hiring. I'll be covering the police hiring and firefighter hiring issues, and Ms. Tina Rodriguez will address the budgetary concerns with civilian hiring. As we'd articulated in our written submissions, police hiring is on the upswing. Last fiscal year, we were able to hire nearly 50 additional officers over the year previous, and we are on a similar track this year. We were one shy of 500 last year. We expect to be well over 550 this year, and we are on track to get that done. Part of the success has been the additional use of data, as the report had asked us to indicate and analyze. We've been relying on a great deal of data in improving our processes, and we've also benefited greatly from the fact that the Council has afforded us additional funding for recruitment as well as for background investigations. The recruitment funds allowed us to create a brand new recruitment campaign called Choose LAPD, which has been featured all around the city on everything from billboards to bus tails to metro buses and streetlight banners. We've enhanced our background investigations through additional hiring and with the support of some LAPD officers assisting in that task. Some of the funding requests that remain would be for additional psychologists in order to make sure that we don't develop a bottleneck in our psychological clearances, and hopefully some additional overtime for the polygraph examiners, again, to avoid any bottlenecks in that. With respect to firefighter hiring, we just closed the new exam. We had extended the deadline in order to allow us to use some of the additional budget funds that we were given and do additional diversity recruitment. That generated approximately 2,650 additional diverse candidates in just the period of time that we had extended the testing and the filing period from the original date to December of 2016. We are already starting to hire from the new cohort, and we expect significant increases in the diversity of our firefighter classes. We had nearly 10,000 applicants, which is consistent with prior years, even though we had changed some of the mechanisms of applying.
So how are we doing in terms of getting to the ideal numbers that we would like in terms of the size of our fire department and our sworn officers?
So with respect to the fire department, we have been able to fill every single fire academy class that the department has asked for. So there has been no shortage there, and we don't expect there to be in the future. With regard to the police department, we are trying to hire in excess of attrition in order to close in on some of the goal numbers. That really depends on how the attrition numbers come in from the department itself. If the attrition holds as expected and we don't suffer any setbacks, I expect that we will reach 10,000 sworn officers before the end of the calendar year.
Very good. And in terms of our goal of hiring 5,000 civilian positions, how are we looking for that?
I will let Ms. Rodriguez handle that question.
Thank you.
I can. The goal is we are, I think, reaching that goal with the resources we've gotten over the past fiscal year. We've been able to keep up with the exam requests that have been coming into us, and they've remained pretty high every month, 15 to 20 exam requests a month. Also, with the additional resources, we've been able to reduce our exam backlog to the point where we are keeping up with the ones that are coming in. Also, we've been able to, with our resources, to come up with innovative solutions to selection. We've done a lot of things over the past fiscal year, such as Skype interview, which broadens our candidate base for out-of-town candidates. We have done weekend interviews. We have done Sunday testing. We have allowed candidates to self-schedule themselves for tests at locations and times of their preference. We also have auto scoring of our qualifications of candidate applications. We also have
How's the auto scoring process going? How helpful has that been?
The auto scoring is basically we ask candidates of their qualifications, and then the system that we have that's fairly new is able to score them and give us a ranking. And then we are able to use that score of all the candidates in that exam to determine who to screen out and who to screen in, who to move forward to the next part of the process, depending on what score they got.
No, I'm asking basically the success of that, since it's a new program. Is that accelerating the speed at which we're able to hire people and go through the process?
It accelerates in the sense that we are able to screen down to the number that we need. So we're able to push them forward faster, if that answers your question.
Yes.
Yes. So there's a step that we don't have to do because it's automated. We don't have to do it manually.
No, I've wanted to see us do that for a long time, so I'm excited that that's implemented and hopefully helping.
Yeah. We also have posted on our website public information about how we are doing in our exams, what progress, what status they are, what the progress is, where we are in the process, so that it answers questions from the public and our candidates as to where we are. Those are some of the things that we've done, and I just want to say that in order for us to sustain what we're doing and come up with more and more innovations, we need to keep our resources. What we have, I think, is doing us very well in terms of addressing the hiring needs of the departments citywide.
So at least right now, you think you have enough resources to be operating all of these programs and hitting all the markers we're trying to hit?
I'm not sure I've heard you correctly, but yes, the resources we have right now that we had gotten in the fiscal year 15-16, we had additional positions, as needed salaries, and also some contractor money. We were able to keep all the balls in the air as a result of that.
Councilmember, if I can interject, I believe the funds that we have will currently allow us to sustain the levels of production that we've been able to deliver. However, in order to either accelerate the services that we're providing or to enhance them, we will need some additional supplemental funds, as we had indicated in our various budget proposals.
And obviously, we expect thousands of retirements in the next few years. How are we anticipating that, and will we need further resources for that?
Yes, I think both of us have put information in our budget proposals. For the selection piece, I can speak about that. We're trying to pilot anytime, anywhere testing, so that we would have the capability of testing people at locations, even at home if they choose to have remote proctor tests where people are videotaped, so that a person doesn't have to be there to monitor the testing. So those are some of the innovations we want to implement. It's a pilot. We think that that's no one else is doing it right now, so that's the way to go, to actually have more testing continuously and also have fresh eligible lists for departments to hire from.
And with regard to public safety, it's essential for us to keep the recruitment funding levels where they are, and also to retain the additional background investigators that were allocated. We're trying to be really innovative, so additional funds would help us venture into the realms of virtual reality in the recruitment process. That's one of the aims that we have in the short future. We are consistently underfunded in fingerprinting and in as-needed funds, which help us with our part-time hirings. And as I mentioned earlier, additional funds for overtime polygraph examiners, as well as for our psychology section, would help clear some bottlenecks in the process.
Okay, and we should be looking at that in the budget process. Mr. Rood, do you have questions?
Just one quick question. I know we have a big $240 million plus hole that we have to patch up, and I think the mayor did a memorandum about having all hiring freezes. Does that affect any of these positions, or is this?
We've been continuously hiring public safety positions.
Okay. So they're public safety is exempt, right?
Public
From this
safety
hiring
is
freeze?
currently exempt, but public safety relies on various civilian positions helping the process through. So the hiring of police officers depends on many civilians working the process for them.
So that's what I'm saying. Is this new order on the hiring freeze affecting this, or has this already been processed, so this is exempt from the new freeze?
It will be, we expect, if there is a hiring freeze, as we understand it, it will affect the public safety hiring process, yes.
So it will affect it?
Yes.
So in terms of civilian hiring, I have not faced any slowdown in terms of what we're requesting. I just want to say, though, that with testing, even if they reduce the number to hire, it takes the same amount of time to do one exam for one person versus 10 or 100 people, because the exam is what it is. We have to go through the same processes to create the exam, to develop it, to process people through.
Right.
I suppose it's a little less time in terms of process because the numbers are smaller, but in terms of developing the exam, it would be about the same amount of time.
Maybe this is more of a CLA or a CAO question. If we pass this today and it goes to council, is it going to not be affected, or does it have to go back to budget, or?
In terms of hiring of
The civilian
police
employees.
officers, civilians.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really sure what the parameters of any hiring freeze are. If there's, it's something we'd have to look at, but I don't think there's been something formally adopted, or maybe.
Right. You're referring to the mayor's
Yes.
communication to ask appointing authorities to reprioritize
Right.
hiring, but that, as I understand it anyway, leaves the discretion of the appointing authorities to.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I think this is very important, so.
And
I'll
if
make
there's
this-
if there's any if it is going to be impacted, that's something that can always be taken up by the council.
Okay.
And generally speaking, when there have been hiring freezes, there have been exceptions, and those have come through on a as needed basis.
I support this, and I think we should move through, it should move forward, but I just wanted to make sure if we prepare for any potential roadblocks. But
And I have one more question. So as far as minority and women being hired in both the police and fire departments, how do you think we've done in recent months?
So with respect to the fire department, we had developed last fiscal year a brand new recruitment campaign, and what we did for the last 6 months was create micro campaigns targeting specific diverse communities. There was a separate one for African American, Hispanic, Asian American, and female candidates, and those targeted media specific to those groups, as well as geographically based recruitment. And as I mentioned before, we got an additional 2,650 diverse candidates into the applicant pool in the time that we extended the testing process. With respect to LAPD, what we've been doing is we've catered our recruitment campaign to be malleable. It has 3 themes: choose your challenge, choose your purpose, choose your future, with interchangeable photos. So they reflect the diversity of the department, and we are using data in order to strategically purchase recruitment advertising, both terrestrially on billboards and the like, and also to target individuals through social media and through streaming services like Pandora and Spotify.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll ask that item 4 through 6 be noted and filed, that we note and file the Personnel Department's report without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Item 7 through 9.
Item 7, continued from August 3rd, 2016. Adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services to report in regard to funding options, including the use of special funds for volunteer coordination services. This matter has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee. Item number 8, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services to report to the PAW Committee regarding online licensing for dogs and cats. And item number 9, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services to report to the PAW Committee regarding the hiring process for animal control officers and any other funded vacant positions within the Department of Animal Services. Additionally, reports have been received on these items subsequent to the release of the agenda, and copies have been distributed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start with item 7. This report that we've prepared responds to a recommendation made in the fiscal year 17 budget process regarding possible funding options for volunteer coordination services. At that time, we were asking for a full-time position of volunteer coordinator. We felt that having a professional volunteer coordinator would help us with the oversight and management of the program and result in a growing of the program as expected by the mayor. We had considered paying for it from the Animal Welfare Trust Fund, and we're hoping to have it regularized and funded by the city after having seen its success to the program. But we later found that to be an inappropriate expenditure from that fund. So at this point, we have identified salary savings over the year that will cover the full cost of the position, and we do plan to use that funding source to hire for the position. It had turned out that hiring a volunteer coordinator was not as easy as we had hoped it would be. We have a very large and complex program at Animal Services, and we had made use of the city's eligibility lists. We interviewed all candidates that made themselves available, but we weren't able to find the kind of background and experience that we were looking for. So now we're in the position of working with the Personnel Department to do some recruitment to try to solicit recruits that would be interested. We are a little bit concerned about the pay range for this position, but we're going to work with the CAO's office if we identify someone with the proper experience to pay them at a rate that would look to retain them.
What's the pay range?
I think the high for that is somewhere in the $80,000 range, and while that's nothing to sneeze at, certainly some of the people that have the kind of background and experience that we're looking for can get a better wage in the private sector, which is how we lost the person before that we had.
What's the low end?
The low end might be somewhere in $60,000 range.
Yeah, I thought of somebody, but I think the pay is probably too low for that person, too.
See?
They have to take a pay cut. I know the mayor's office has established a volunteer corps. Is there anything that they can do that might be helpful?
I'm not aware of what services they provide for that, but we are happy to look into that and contact them and see if there's something that they can do to help us with what we're looking for.
Okay. And why don't you cover item 8 and 9?
Yes, sir. Okay, so item number 8. This is also in response to an inquiry during the fiscal year 17 budget process, where we were able to increase, where we were told that they wanted us to increase online license sales. So first, I want to point out that we do not license cats in the city of Los Angeles, so we only license dogs and horses. And the online license.
Do we not do voluntary licensing of cats at all?
We do not. We do sell something called a cat tag, but it's not a license in the same sense that we license dogs and equine.
Okay.
So online licensing is a service that we offer to the community, and it is used pretty regularly among those citizens who are comfortable with technology, particularly the type of technology where there is a monetary exchange. And if they have regular access to technology, they do use it. This fiscal year, we've updated our data management system, Chameleon, with some features that allow for an easier and more seamless online processing. We've included in our report charts to help show the increase in online sales over the years. But, as it relates to the overall number of licenses that we sell, obviously it's a much smaller amount, and that's for a number of reasons. There is a large community of pet owners that do not participate in automated money exchanges or technology at all. Those with language barriers, we're finding, are less likely to use online sales. Likewise, first-time licenses are more, people who are buying their license for the first time are more apt to do it in person so that they can receive their tag sort of right away in their hand and have their animal then display it or wear it, as many people do. Finally, the ACE program also increases license sales, but the ACE program is like a citation. So people are, again, more apt to come into the shelter and clear that up. So that they'll have, something in their hand right away that shows that the ACE is cleared. So, we do try to encourage online licensing, through phone calls. When people call us, we let them know that they can go online. We are one of the only agencies in the area that allows first-time licensors to do so online. Lots of other places don't allow that, including the county, where you would have to either go through the mail or go into one of the shelters.
How much less does it cost to do it online as opposed to in person?
It's the same price.
Not for the consumer, but in terms of the department, is it a savings in terms of our processing and personnel?
Right. I actually don't have a sort of a breakdown of that cost like in front of me about how much it costs us to process. But even if they do it online, there is still a manual process, particularly for a first-time person, because we still have to mail them the tag and all of that sort of thing. So for a renewal, it's fairly easy. The renewals are very seamless, and if you do them online, you will get a certificate in the mail, and you're able to. There's certainly a savings there, but I don't have the breakdown of that with me.
Yeah, certainly. If we can do more to educate the public and ask them to participate in that process for renewals, it seems like it would save the city a little money, and we'd probably get more renewals. So.
In terms of educating the public, we are nearly finished with our strategic planning process, and one of the priorities that we are focused on is communication and outreach. And certainly that area includes lots of public awareness and campaigns to make sure that the public knows what kind of services we offer, and we will certainly be sure to highlight online sales and that sort of thing for the reasons that you stated.
And can we also take a look at the possibility of voluntary cat licensing and whether there's value in moving forward with that?
Yes, sir.
Let's see.
Okay. And then finally, item number 9. So here we have an update for you on our animal control officer hiring. And I'm highlighting animal control officer because, as you know, this is the area that we have struggled with in the last couple years, trying to get adequate coverage in the field. And we had some problems. We've been working on this for a couple years, and working with the personnel department, identifying some of the issues and having them make some changes to their processes, and so that we're all on the same page. So we've come a long way. So I'm going to skip to the end because I'm excited about the end because we're in such a good place now comparatively. So right now we have a total of, where are we here? We have a total of 83 animal control officers. 26 of those are vacant. And we have an active certification for 25 of those positions. We are processing candidates that have a score of 92 and above, and 24 conditional job offers have been made. So that is to say that those 24 people are going to be scheduled for medical and psychological exams that actually have begun a couple days ago and are scheduled to be completed tomorrow. And there's also another 18 to 22 candidates that are in some phase of the background process. So we are waiting to see of the 24 people who have been scheduled for psych and medical, when they're cleared, we are going to be bringing them on board. Working with the personnel department, we estimate the next start date to be March 6th. And we are hoping, I mean, the best case scenario is for all 24 of them to have passed medical and psych, but based on the past, that likely is not the case. But however many of them pass, we are going to be ready to receive them by the March 6th date.
So we'll be pretty close to fully staffed up at that point.
Yes, we will. Now, we do have some attrition during the process, during the training period. The training it's pretty intense, and sometimes it's not exactly what they thought it would be, once they get on board. But we're confident that we are at a place with the personnel department and with the eligible list that we have now that we're going to be able to fill the positions that are vacant. And we are also working on streamlining the process for future test administrations, and so that when we do open the exam again, we will be in a better place for a more expedient process for future vacancies.
And when we do disqualify candidates, what's typically the disqualifiers that
in the
cause
background process?
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, it runs it runs the gamut. We do the personnel department gives them a personal history questionnaire whereby they answer questions of, themselves. And amazingly, people don't always tell the truth on that particular part of the process. And then when the field investigation takes place, we find that people are not their backgrounds are in terms of maturity, judgment, those kinds of things. They fall very short in those areas based on their past. So, our animal control officers do have access to firearms, and so we are concerned about one's ability to make mature judgments and that kind of thing. So we found, like people, for example, candidates who get involved in physical altercations on some regular basis as adults. So that'd be an example of something that we would not move forward through the process.
Not folks that you'd necessarily want to be armed and representing the city.
Exactly. There are lots of stimulus out there as an animal control officer. So we definitely need somebody who is patient and who has a control over their temper.
Okay, Mr. Rue, any
I'm good.
questions? Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation, and we will we'll note and file these items without objection. Item number 11.
Item number 11, CAO report relative to proposed amendment number 3 to contract number C-102635 with Swinnerton Management Consulting, Inc. for program management, construction management services for the animal bond program in connection with the renovation project at the North Central Animal Shelter. This matter was considered by the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee on Monday, January 23rd, and was approved.
Good morning, council members. I'm Ramon Soto. I'm with the City Administrative Officer. Before you is a contract amendment with Swinnerton Management. It is for project management and construction management services for the animal shelter bond program. In this case, we've finished all of the projects under the animal bond program with the exception of major renovations at the North Central Animal Shelter. That project is about $15 million. All of our projects use a project delivery model that includes these PMCM type services. The extension period would be about 5 years from September 2016 to 2021. The project itself is actually scheduled to conclude around 2019, but we're asking for an extra period just for flexibility. The total contract amount for the time that we've had Swinnerton has been $6.2 million. We're not requesting any more funding. There's about $5.8 million has been spent, and there's about $400,000 to go. It'll probably be spent over the period of time that the North Central Animal Shelter is in construction.
And I wonder if you could describe the modifications to the North Central Animal Shelter that will take place.
We have the project manager from BOE here.
Good morning. Basically, we're going to be extending the lobby area and basically modifying the administration area.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Pardon me?
Your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Alan Spiritu with the Bureau of Engineering Bond Programs Division. Basically, we'll be expanding the lobby area approximately 200 square foot. The administrative area, we're going to modify it and make it larger. We are going to add a cat aviary area at the lobby area.
And I know the last time I visited there, I thought the habitat for rabbits and other animals that were not dogs or cats wasn't really very visible or ideal. Are we looking at making any changes to those as well?
The current design, no. Basically, Animal Services had wanted more rooms for the cat. So we are going to provide cat nurseries, cat play area, basically, but nothing mentioned for the rabbits.
We work closely with the Animal Services Department on scoping the projects, and we do our best to include as many of the facets that they indicate they're looking for within the authorized funding. I guess if you have any particular questions about rabbits and to the degree that we have facilities for them, I think we could probably ask the Animal Service Department if anyone's here to talk about that point. I would like to say that...
I see the general manager here. Maybe we could ask her that question because there was a combination of no signage, animals kind of exposed to the elements a little more than ideal, and they were really blocked off from visibility. So unless you actually asked for a rabbit, you didn't have a chance to just see one and say, oh, that looks great, let me adopt one. So is there any way that that could be included in this process?
Well, probably not in this process, but I can tell you what we've been doing. There is space that's not being used currently at the shelter that SAF is converting to rabbit use space that is indoors and more accessible to the volunteers and the public. It may be affected with the construction, and we still may have to make another move, but these are the kind of improvements that I think are small enough that we can do it within the Animal Welfare Trust Fund, which is a fund that's allowed to be used for the betterment of the animals, for their care. So I think we're judiciously working on that. And I believe one of the reports that we have coming back to you in the coming months is looking at how all the animals are housed at all the shelters and reporting back on that in case we need to make some adjustments.
Right, and I've only looked at that one shelter with an eye towards that. I don't know if it's a common problem that the rabbits aren't very visible and not good signage to point out where they are, et cetera.
Yeah, the rabbits may have been somewhat of an afterthought at North. They're in a safe place. They're in an outdoor space. People are often concerned about rabbits and want them in, indoors completely. We recommend that for pets totally, that they be house animals. But, in terms of where they are, in terms of their safety from heat and all, I think that's less of an issue. But in terms of being accessible and not having to hear the dogs barking when you're looking at the animals, I think that's probably a biggest problem. So they are being moved inside now.
I think that's good because I think the rabbits, some of them seem frightened and they're completely hidden. So I'm glad to hear that that's being changed. Mr. Rue, any questions on this one? I have one other question. So the contracts being extended through 2021, it seems like the project will be completed probably a little bit earlier.
That's
So
correct.
why are we extending it out to
It's
2021?
just, it's all for flexibility in case if there's any hiccup, which we don't expect, we would not have to come back and request another extension.
So we're not expecting it.
No, not
that
at all.
It
Not
would
at all.
go that long. It's sort of a just in case for the
Correct.
worst case scenario.
Right.
Great. All right. Well, I will ask that we move this item forward without objection. And thank you for your presentation. And we will concur with the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee to approve the CAO's recommendation. Item number 12.
Item 12, motion, Rue Wesson, relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services with the assistance of the city attorney to report within 60 days in regard to the feasibility of allowing the retail sale of pet supplies and products at the city shelters in a manner that will generate revenue to support department operations.
The lead on that.
I believe we got any-
Okay. So on item number 12, this actually started, there was kind of a dual thing going on here. Councilman Rue made a motion with respect to retail sales of pet supplies in city shelters, and sort of at the same time, one of our commissioners, Commissioner Wolfson, was also interested in doing that. So we had quite a bit of conversation about it in our commission meetings and decided to go out to RFP for a retail sales company to set up shop in our shelters so that pet supplies could be available for adopters. Certainly the things that you would need right away when you initially adopt an animal. So the RFP was initially posted on the business network for the city on November 1st, and the responses were due by mid-December. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a snafu, if you will. One of the there's two requirements in the RFP process. One of them is like a business practice requirement where the bidders must tell us that they went out and surveyed minority businesses and that sort of thing, and there's a requirement for that had a different timeline, and then the actual bid was due, the proposal, if you will, was due at the end of the period. So we had one bidder do the outreach piece, and the other bidder just did a proposal. So we felt like, there must be a little bit of confusion on the part of these bidders, and so what we did is we went out to bid once again, and this time neither of them did anything. So we have been in conversation with them before the end of the period, which was yesterday, and one of the bidders said, yes, I am confused and I do need some help. So we have extended it once again and are giving some direction, to the interested bidder. So we are looking very forward to getting a retail provider in the shelters. And actually what we did is the RFP is written in such a way that you can bid on one shelter, more than one shelter, or all the shelters. So some people, like for example, one of the bidders was a smaller operation that bid only for the shelter that was near their retail facility. So, if we end up with 6 different contractors, that's fine with us if it meets our needs. If we end up with one large retail supplier, that would be fine with us. So we just want to be able to, award the contract and so the services can be provided. If you have any questions, we can.
Mr. Rue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Brenda, and thank you to the department for your report. And yes, I've had subsequent conversations and connections with the commission, and I look forward to working closely with them because I don't want you to replicate the wheel, and I think we were in sync. We didn't talk to each other, but we had the same idea in mind. So, about the RFPs. So I'm a little discouraged that we only had 2 applicants. Can you kind of explain the department's outreach process and your strategy in collecting the RFPs?
So we did send the RFP out to the top 25 retail companies in the U.S. that sell pet foods and products, and we also sent RFPs to businesses and nonprofits that we knew in the region. So sometimes, we do that, and certainly the commissioner that was supportive of this particular item, he helped as well with contact information so that the RFP can get out to the people who are interested in participating or possibly interested in participating. So we did do a little bit of outreach where that was concerned.
So you made an extension of the current RFP. So when is the extension till again? I'm sorry.
Because at the time that I was looking for the answer to that question, we hadn't extended it yet. It's either 30 days or 60 days, but I'm thinking it's a 30-day extension.
Yeah, because the first one actually ended yesterday. Or the last one actually ended yesterday.
Is there any, within that 30 or 60 days, is there any other way we could try to diversify the outreach to encourage more retailers to participate somehow?
There's a lot of things that we could do, but in terms of outreach to more vendors, I think we've done a good job. Initially, I connected the commissioner with the charitable branches of both PetSmart Charities and Petco because I know both of those groups pretty well, and because they're the biggest and they're the ones who could most likely afford to staff a small kiosk in 6 different shelters, because I think their staffing may end up being relatively expensive in the process. One of the things that I was interested in when I first got here was having the department have retail items. And at that time, there was a complication with Prop F funding and the amount of retail space, and we couldn't do it. Certainly, if we don't have a vendor, we can consider doing something ourselves just as the department.
Okay. And on that note, is there any restrictions for offering, for-profit entities to provide these kiosks and services at a city facility? Have you checked with the CAO or the city attorney on that?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, you said for Prop F there was a problem that for the department to have, commercial space run by the department. So I just want to make sure that it's okay that we allow a for-profit like a Petco to operate space within a city facility.
Dov Lascelle from the City Attorney's Office. We've discussed this with the CAO. The first issue, of course, is whether the outstanding bonds for the shelters would prohibit or inhibit any of this. And at some point, we should be getting a response on that from the CAO or outside counsel. More directly to your question, however, as long as the department goes out to an RFP and there is value to the city, in other words, for instance, the RFP does contain a rent clause in it, that it's open to everybody, the city will be getting value, so it's not a gift of public funds. I don't think that there would be a problem.
Okay. I want to make sure on that. The whole genesis of this motion was to, we have this area of budget uncertainty, especially with this $240 million hole, which we didn't know about when we proposed this motion. I just wanted to use this motion to identify any alternative opportunities for the department to generate additional funds. So I don't know. I don't know if what else we could do. I don't know if you thought about separating the RFPs into 6 separate RFPs and doing more localized outreach for any localized pet shops. I just want to make sure that we have a robust interest in this.
Well, we could re-release the RFPs that way, but it is written in a way that we could get 6 different, bidders that only wanted to look at one shelter. So it's written in a way that they can do them singularly. Probably, if we re-released it, we would probably maybe do some outreach, some localized outreach maybe. But the way that it's written, it's all one, some, or whatever.
Would it help if I added a friendly amendment to expand to ask the department to report on other revenue generation ideas that you're currently exploring to this motion?
Possibly not to this motion, but maybe as a separate motion. I mean, we're looking at some marketing opportunities. We're looking at some direct marketing campaigns that would both be a public relations aspect, but also could be a fundraising aspect. That's a report that's going to the commission. So once things go to the commission, then they come here to you before they go anywhere else. So that's sort of in the works.
So that's already in the works.
Yeah. My personal thought, and I don't know, we did have a couple of people respond to the RFP, but I suspect that the cost of staffing for the amount of retail product that they can sell is not enticing, because we have limited space that we can even offer. So we may want to explore at some point, is this something that each shelter should be doing where we can have our current staff and volunteers help with the sales? I mean, I've been involved in private sector shelters. I've been involved with this kind of thing before, and it was pretty popular and pretty lucrative. But again, we'd have to look and make sure that we would now be cleared to do that under Prop F.
Okay. Well, then I'll just hold off on that motion. I'll just wait for the commission to report back. But I'm fully supportive of anything, alternatives or innovations that you guys could think of, because I want to make sure we augment your department as much as we can, or give you the leeway so you could do something innovative to augment your department.
Yeah, and it's a little off topic, but as the ACE program grows, I think although the revenue doesn't go into our department, it goes into the general fund right now. That program is growing, and I believe that will be a good thing for the city.
Great.
And it sounds to me like if we can make it happen, probably the most logical thing is actually to do it in-house, because then we don't have to hire additional staff. The same people that do the collecting of fees for animals and licensing, et cetera, could probably do some of that.
Instead of a percentage of the take from a retail partner, it would be whatever the profit was on the products.
And maybe
be able to get some of our retail partners to donate some product for publicity.
I think that would be great, and maybe we can ask them also to do a little pro bono advising of how you set that up and market it properly and which items to select. So if we can find a way to do that, that actually sounds like an exciting prospect. So maybe we'll wind up being better off not having a successful RFP if we can do it in-house. So, Mr. Rue, thank you for bringing this forward, and we will note and file this report without objection. Item number 13.
Item number 13, motion, Rue Krikorian, relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services with the assistance of the CAO to conduct a comprehensive review and fiscal analysis of the current fee structure for all licenses, permits, and services, and report in regard to appropriate modification of the Department of Animal Services fee structure and related matters. Additionally, a report was submitted in regard to this item subsequent to the release of the agenda.
Okay, so as you know, 2010 was the last time that the department conducted an analysis of fees. And so we took a comprehensive look at our fee structure and all of the various fees that we charge for our services. Just for the sake of ease, we broke the fees down in several categories to make them more easily understood and easier to digest. We have adoption fees, we have licensing fees, we have redemption fees, surrender fees, we have lien and quarantine fees, permit fees, penalty fees, and miscellaneous fees. And so upon looking at all of our fees, there were some areas that we gathered, from our strategic planning process that we knew that the community was unhappy with. They wanted us to take a look at some specific areas of owner surrender fees, for example. And in a previous meeting where we talked about this, Commissioner Harris Dawson made a recommendation that surrender fees might be donation-based, and giving then those low-income residents that cannot afford to pay a surrender fee, giving them the opportunity to still surrender their animals without having to pay. So that is a change that we recommended, a proposal that we recommended. And I wanted to also say that this entire package actually has been submitted with our budget. So it's going to be coming through the budget process, but I guess maybe this sort of speeds it up a little bit because it would have come to Paul anyway, obviously. But I suspect that we will also have a stint in Budget and Finance with this same package. But nevertheless, we made a number of recommendations that I will go over for you, just sort of to highlight some of the larger ones. We recommend a $250 fee for exotic birds. Currently, we don't have an exotic bird fee. We only have a $17 bird fee. And just anecdotally, I'll tell you that we recently had a large exotic bird bust that we ended up having to sell these birds for $17 a piece, because that is what the fee structure calls for, when in fact many of these birds are worth $300 and $400 and $500. So we are proposing to add an exotic bird fee. Also, we are proposing to reduce the cat adoption fee to $25. As you know, we have been working on a ASPCA grant that has been underwriting the cost of adopting cats to the community, and it has been wildly successful. We have been very successful in adopting cats, but that money is going to be coming to an end very soon, and so we want to adjust the fee structure so that cats will be more adoptable and more affordable to the public, so that we can continue to adopt them out to families who are interested and able to care for them. We also are proposing a kitten adoption fee of $50, which is something new, and also a puppy adoption fee, which is $150, which is also new. Obviously puppies are more widely desired, and so we find ourselves in auction situations with puppies more often, and so we figured that it might be better just to propose a higher fee for puppies, and we believe that the community would respond positively to that. We've made also some adjustments that just kind of go in line with having reduced the cat fee. Then we're gonna have to reduce the discount cat adoption, the New Hope cat adoption, so those sort of go along with the original recommendation. There's not much in the way of licensing in terms of what we've recommended, except for there is a recommendation for a microchip owner request fee. So instead of $25, which is what we charge you when you get an animal from us, we want to encourage people who have their own animals already to come into the shelter and have their animals microchipped. And so we are proposing a $15 fee for that. Then the redemption fees they kind of go along with some of the other recommendations that we've made. It's not significant, but the proposals that we made kind of fall into place in terms of inflation and that sort of thing, the cost of taking care of these animals that belong to other people. We talked a little bit about the surrender fees, so the analysis behind that. Again, we have made some modifications to our lien and quarantine fees that basically speak to inflation, as well as what is widely charged in the industry. And then in permitting, We have definitely made some changes that are relative to inflation. And then we recently had a change in the permits for circus without vet review. So what we've done is in more recent years, we have had to foot the bill for the vet review of any of circuses that come in, where we have to provide a vet for the animals associated with the show. So we propose now to have a permit for circus that includes a vet review. So there are some circuses that don't need a vet review, and in that case, they can continue with the $4,000 fee that is currently on our books, but we'd like to propose, though, one that also includes vet fees, because in more recent years, we've certainly had to foot the bill on the vet fees.
Are there circuses other than Ringling Brothers that come through with exotic animals?
There are some, yes.
They're mostly local, and they don't travel like Ringling. I think is the big difference. They're usually here for a day instead of, a Staples Center for a week or whatever.
But they do still come through.
They do still come, yes, sir. But I'll say that at the time that we were making this proposal, this is when Ringling was in the news about what their plans were for the future. But we still decided, because this is not so much about Ringling as it is about exotic animal circuses that have large numbers of animals. So we went ahead and made the recommendation so that we have it on the books in case we need it for a change in their protocols or even other circuses that might come.
And I know, of course, we're looking at legislation that might eliminate that possibility. So it may or may not be relevant by the time we get to budget time, but we'll see.
So the way this process went, with the exception of adoption fees and surrender fees, those recommendations are based on what we think we can do that's best for the animals. In terms of the other fees, we had staff working with our accounting team, and they talked about what level of employee, what hourly rate, how long it took. So all of these have been costed out as cost analysis to get to the numbers that we've recommended changes in.
Mr. Rue, any questions?
Yeah, thank you so very much on this extensive report. And the other question and this was, I think Marquise Harris Dawson had a lot of concerns about this, especially the sliding scale and supporting pet owners from all backgrounds and socioeconomics with the right resources for their pets. So I'm going to try to channel his questions as well. But the first question I want to ask was, I think the last time you guys did a fee rate restructuring was in 2010?
Yes.
So, and I know most of the fees stayed flat, and you had a couple of new ones, and I think it all makes reasonable sense, except for rabbits. I don't know, maybe I just think rabbits are much smaller. How come the rabbits, cats, and dogs are almost similar in cost?
I'll be glad to answer that. When I first came here, I'll tell you that I truthfully looked at the rabbit fees and said, why are we charging so much for rabbits when we actually, have a large enough supply? And what we learned in dealing with our rabbit advocates is they consider keeping the adoption fee high on the rabbits extremely important. And, as I've worked with them over the last 6.5 years, I see them stepping up to the plate, helping us transfer rabbits from shelter to shelter. And I think it would be probably a break of faith with them if we reduce, the rabbit fees, and we probably would not have the same kind of support and relationship that we currently have.
So it doesn't have any association with vaccinations costs or, okay.
No, it's just the fear of how the rabbits might be used or handled if we reduce the fees.
Okay. So, but the other thing was, going back in 2010 to till now, if we adjust for inflation, there should have been like a 12.5% increase.
But adoption fees?
Well, just inflation in general. Oh. So, I mean, inflation from what year are we now? 7 years ago. Just inflation alone should be about a roughly 10+% increase. I was just wondering, did you take that into account, or?
Yes, well, we did take that into account, along with cost recovery, actual cost recovery for the department, and then other surrounding agencies and what they charge for certain services. So, for example, in 2010, there were some costs that were not augmented at all. So you will find that our increase is far more than 12%. Like, for example, the trapping cost, of getting traps from us. We had not changed those in quite some time, and so in those cases, they are like significantly raised in terms of our proposal. But we took into consideration a number of things to come up sort of with what we came up with, and again, as I mentioned before, as we have been in the community so recently with this strategic planning process, listening to what they have to say about what they expect when they come into a shelter and the services that we provide, those are things that we also took into consideration.
And I really like the donation only for the surrendering of most of the animals, and I know Marquise Harris Dawson would have liked that as well. And you guys are going to track the donations that come in, right?
Well, we do, and we actually send them letters, and it's a tax deduction since it's a donation.
Even better. Great. And obviously we let them know about that, right?
Yes.
For those who could afford it. Last question. So has the department or CAO, regarding the proposed fee adjustments, have you had any public hearings or any kind of comment period? And if you did, was there any objections?
No, so far we have not. We submitted this through the budget process and thought that the public period would come through the hearings process. But so this is the first formal setting that we've been in. As a matter of fact, when we were asked to bring it to Paul outside of the budget hearing, I was scrambling to see if we could get it to commission before then. But we don't have a commission meeting before that. We didn't have a commission meeting before this, and so this is in fact the first public forum that we have discussed these recommendations in.
Well, we work with Commissioner Larry Gross closely, not just on animal issues, but a lot of other issues as well. We'll try to make sure in the future to coordinate with the commissioners and your office before we introduce another motion, so we're at least in sync with the commission. So, but thank you.
We're all city family.
Yeah. It's a good thing. My office, we at Paul and the commission, we think alike. So,
Yeah.
And I don't want you guys to double work.
So the commission is going to hear this also?
Normally, yeah, you will. Normally, they would hear it before you did, but yes, I think it's probably best for us to take it to commission before it gets to the budget hearing.
Is there a way to do more outreach? Because obviously, we have no members of the public here, I believe, in this room, so we're not getting any feedback from them.
Right, okay. Well,
we could write. We just recently met with neighborhood councils, and they have animal liaisons. We could certainly send something out to the neighborhood councils and give them an opportunity to give us feedback, which would cover all the neighborhoods in the city, if that would work.
I think that would be a great idea. So let me see if I had any other questions. Did you work with the CAO at all to have them review any of these proposed changes?
Yes, actually, we submitted it with a budget request, so we did submit it to the CAO's office and expected to go through the process with them before we move forward. As a matter of fact, our budget hearing is scheduled for mid-February. And so I expect that we will have some direct conversation with the CAO about these recommendations at that time.
Very good. All right, well, if there's no...
Councilman,
you
if
want
I
to comment
may.
on this item?
Yeah, not on this item. This is actually on a previous item, so...
Well, why don't we finish up the vote on this item then? So I think we will approve this item without objection. And now, if...
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarification, this was in the context of the discussion about a hiring freeze. That issue actually came up in the context of the financial status report and dealing with this year's budget deficits. So what was adopted by the council was really more of a limitation, not a hard hiring freeze like we've had in the past. It's to expedite hiring for special funded and mandated programs, and limit hiring for others until the mid-year is considered. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
And the mid-year consideration will take place when?
It usually is in like sometime in February or early March, so I would imagine that's coming up fairly soon. And then the CAO would make any further recommendations at that time.
So any restrictions, we're talking about a very brief period of time.
Right now, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so with that, I believe there is no further business before us.
Further items.
And so we are adjourned.